Welcome to Standard Chartered Money Insights, a podcast series by Standard Chartered Bank that brings you market views and insights on the go.
Welcome to Cut to the Chase. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd of July. I'm Daniel Lam, your host for the podcast. Now, as we learned in our high school chemistry lessons, for a chemical reaction to occur, you do need a catalyst. Now we spoke at length about the topping out of the US dollar, being the catalyst for rotation from the exuberance camp, i.e. technology stocks in the US, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan, to the non-exuberance camp, such as US healthcare and financials, as well as stocks in the Hang Seng Index. Today, I want to talk about a fresh catalyst, the quote-unquote moonshot moment, or the Kimi moment, from the launch of the Kimi K3 model. This comes at a time when sentiment on the exuberance camp is already weak. The Kimi K3 launch gave investors another reason to reassess crowded legacy AI winners. In turn, this sharpened the China AI catch-up narrative, with general intelligence and code arena rankings showing that Chinese models are closing the gap and in some areas outperforming the US premium equivalents at a discount. This acts as a strong catalyst to trigger differences in positioning between US tech, which is still at plus 2.6 standard deviation, compared to Chinese tech, which is just lower than plus 1 standard deviation in their measurements versus their respective benchmark. Compared to January 2025's DeepSeek moment, the index level setup looks broadly okay, but the tech sector setup is more fragile this time. The combined US positioning is plus 0.42 standard deviation now versus 0.5 standard deviation then, i.e. limited downside risk to broad US indices. However, the tech positioning is more crowded this time around, at plus 2.6 standard deviation versus 1.5 standard deviation in January 2025, when the sector underperformed S&P 500 by 4 to 5 percentage points subsequently. With China competition ramping up, from Kimi K3 to QN 3.8 Max over the weekend, the positioning risk remains key, with crowded US tech longs still vulnerable to profit taking and rotation into lesser-owned sectors. Kimi K3 is positive for China internet stocks, which gains access to a frontier open model and accelerates AI product launches. However, the effects may not be so black and white or excessively negative for US tech stocks. For example, for big techs, cheaper models, they do compress model pricing, which is negative for the AI labs that big tech owns, but positive for cloud consumption. So overall, it reinforces our view that the rotation into Hang Seng Index still has some room to go, but we do not see excessive downside in the exuberance camp either. That is all from me for today. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to rate and like it. Thanks for listening, and we wish you a happy day ahead.
Thank you for listening to Standard Chartered Money Insights, a podcast series by Standard Chartered Bank. For more details, visit Market Views on the Go on our website or click the link in the description.